Oscar Mayer Deli Fresh ham has no added nitrates, or artificial preservatives. Now, Deli Fresh flavor is for everyone, like those who like
sweet,
those who prefer heat, and those who just love meat. Oscar Mayer Deli Fresh, a fresh way to deli.
Today, we're opening more than 150,000 locations called Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get Domino's delivered to every single one of them. Get 2 medium, 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each.
Domino's Hotspots, delivery to parks, beaches, and other outdoor locations near you.
If you have moderate to severe psoriasis or psoriatic arthritis, little things can be a big deal. That's why there's Otezla. Otezla is not an injection or a cream. It's a pill that treats differently. For psoriasis, 75% clearer skin is achievable with reduced redness, thickness, and scaliness of plaques. For psoriatic arthritis, Otezla is proven to reduce joint swelling, tenderness, and pain. And the Otezla prescribing information has no requirement for routine lab monitoring. Don't use if you're allergic to Otezla. It may cause severe diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting. Otezla is associated with an increased risk of depression. Tell your doctor if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts, or if these feelings develop. Some people taking Otezla reported weight loss. Your doctor should monitor your weight and may stop treatment. Upper respiratory tract infection and headache may occur. Tell your doctor about your medicines and if you're pregnant or planning to be. Otezla, show more of you.
Today's Best Western rewards you in a flash. Get a free night fast with points that never expire at over 4,200 hotels worldwide. And get double rewards points on every stay. Book now at bestwestern.com.
I don't keep track of regrets, and I don't add up the years. But what I do count on is Boost.
Delicious Boost High Protein Nutritional Drink now has 33% more protein, along with 26 essential vitamins and minerals. Boost High Protein. Be up for life.
Welcome back to our coverage of Hurricane Michael. We've got a new advisory from the National Hurricane Center. The storm is still a hurricane, a Category 1 hurricane with winds of 75 miles per hour, moving northeast now at 20 miles per hour. So we continue to see an increase in the forward speed. The pressure still rising now up to 970 millibars. Some subtle changes here to the forecast track. You notice that it's going to be coming right up through the central part of South and North Carolina, coming over Raleigh as a low-grade tropical storm. There will be a threat for winds of 50, maybe 60 miles per hour in gusts, and certainly a lot of very heavy rain with the storm as well. Always there is a tornado threat when you've got landfalling tropical cyclones, and there's a tornado warning to tell you about in Beaufort, Chatham, and Jasper counties. That's going until 11:15. We are seeing just a little bit of an appendage showing up. That is now west of Hilton Head. There are actually several cells here that have got just a little bit of a hook to them. We've been looking at the velocity data and not seeing anything that really jumps out. A little bit of rotation showing up there just west of Tybee, but probably more useful just to look at the cells in reflectivity. So as they move north, you've got one right in there. That's going to be coming up towards Pritchard. Got another cell that is off to the east of that. That's going to be coming up just west of Hilton Head towards Lawton and Spanish Wells. And then we've got another couple that are offshore as well. So we'll keep our eyes on all of these as they make their way off towards the north here. This storm was unbelievably strong as it came in. It was actually the third strongest at landfall in United States history. And look at this, the visible satellite picture of the eye as it came in. Because the storm was so strong, when they get really intense, they get a very well-formed eye, and you get a tremendous amount of sinking in that eye, which actually cleared out the eye. There was actually clear sky in the eye. You don't always see that. A lot of times you've got low cloud in that eye, but there was sunshine, and we've actually seen some pictures and some video of people that were in that eye looking up at the eye wall, seeing very much the same thing that the hurricane hunters see when they fly into the storms. You could see that from the ground today, and that is testament to just how strong this storm was. Got an ongoing wind and rain threat. The core of the storm now coming up near Cordele and across that 75 corridor, winds gusting to 44 in Macon right now, 36 in Vidalia, 40 miles per hour in Atlanta now, and there's going to be a pretty good bit of wind overnight. Widespread power outage potential across South Georgia, southeast South Carolina, parts of North Carolina, and an ongoing flash flood threat. Flash flood warning for Macon, Schley, Sumter counties until 3 o'clock in the morning, and we will watch that flash flood threat make its way farther to the north. There you see the heavy rain that's occurred already in the wake of the storm, and the heavy rain coming up and into central parts of South Carolina and North Carolina. All right, we want to get out to Mark Elliott. He has been in Cordele, and Mark, I know, I've been in a number of these storms myself, and it's amazing how loud they are. The wind, of course, is very loud in and of itself, but then you've got all this stuff that's happening, the trees being blown around, and then even a little bit of cracking that's occurring. I know you've been hearing that all night.
Absolutely. I think the loudest part right now, Carl, is the trees. There are some trees off to my right, and the wind is howling through those leaves, and that's actually the loudest part of the storm. One thing that you may notice that is lacking right now is any water. We're basically in that center of the storm. It is not pouring down rain at the moment. In fact, it's barely drizzling. A lot of the rain that you may be seeing is spraying off the roofs and spraying off the cars in the streets, as opposed to actually falling down from the sky at this point. So it is a very different scenario out here right now, even compared to 10 minutes ago when the core of Michael was moving on through. Now, it's a very different storm right now as compared to what it was earlier today. As Carl mentioned, a historic storm with just, any way you slice it, it was exceptional as it came in towards that Florida coastline. But that doesn't mean that all the threats are done. Where that core goes through the rest of Georgia, now that it's basically crossed over 75, going into eastern sides of central Georgia now, wherever that core goes, there's still going to be a real corridor of strong winds. And there's still plenty of rain with it if you're, out ahead of that center as well. That rain saturates the grounds. The wind then comes through and helps to knock down the trees. So that sound is one that you don't forget when you're out here covering these storms. There is that howl. In fact, there comes another gust right now. There's some leaves blowing around me, and I'm in a bit of the wake from the building itself, so we're seeing that kind of swirling pattern to the leaves around me as well. But you hear the cracking of those tree limbs. You hear the kind of there's some power lines well above me and well away from me as well. We're trying to pick a safe spot, of course, but we can hear them moving around as well. And then, there's some metal sounds that we've heard from signs off in the distance shaking back and forth. So the threats continue tonight, and without power, it is an eerie night here across much of Cordele. Going to send it down now towards Florida. Is it Tevin or Chris? Tevin in Tallahassee. Tevin, the tree canopy there is magnificent until it falls down on your yard. Then it's not so much. And I think so many people in Tallahassee are going to be dealing with that tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, Mark, in fact, if you drive through here, sunrise or sunset, you get a very nice view of those canopy oaks or the pine trees. But as you just mentioned, they're beautiful until they're down on the ground or, knocking down some power lines. And that's more of a nuisance because then you don't have power. I think a lot of people would prefer, they fall into the roadways and you just stay home, but you have power. But because they're falling onto the power lines, then you've got several thousand people without power. In fact, 110,000 people in the city of Tallahassee right now without power, according to the city utilities here in Tallahassee, and that's just one agency. So there could be another agency that keeps track of how many people are without power, or a different company there. So we could certainly see more rise, and we can see those numbers rise too as the wind gusts continue to pick up. In fact, earlier we had gusts around 31 to 38 miles an hour, so still tropical storm force gusts, but most of the winds are starting to stick around 20 miles an hour. That's still a bad thing, though, because you get trees that come down. The grounds are saturated from the rainfall that we saw today. In fact, urban search and rescue from the city had to go through and assist 3 people that were stranded in their homes because trees had fallen on their homes. Here's what the mayor had to say, though, about how the city fared overall for Michael. Take a listen.
We know that there have been trees through homes, but by and large, I think Tallahassee, our community, will fare well. My heart certainly goes out to our neighbors on the coastal side of this thing. I saw what happened at Mexico Beach. I've seen what happened in other parts of the northwestern Panhandle. We want to be able to come to their aid, so we want to get ourselves up and going as quickly as we can, so that we can be a real partner to our neighbors out west.
and they're going to be going out as quickly as possible. The thing is, though, the winds have to die down, and then you get crews that come through and clean up the debris, and shortly thereafter you get the linemen. And just to give you an idea about how prepared the city is, they have obtained 124 mutual aid line and tree clearing crews from for more than 20 utilities, including Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Nebraska, Florida, and that's where crews have come from to assist. But they also have crews, Alex, from other parts of the country to come in and assist with the utilities and the electricity as well. So you've not only got the debris removal, but also mutual aid for electricity as well, which is going to make for hopefully a faster process and turnaround time for these lights to be back on for 110,000 residents.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks so much, Tevin. We'll be checking back with you, but a lot of information coming into us tonight. So let's get you caught up on what we know right now. Right now, 500,000 customers are without power in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. In Florida alone, that number is close to 300,000. Right now, Bay County, Florida Fire and EMS says they're just not able to respond to emergency calls. Tonight, there's 2,500 Florida National Guard troops out on the streets, and the governor activated them to help with Michael's response. So, yeah, that's what we've got here in terms of the very latest when it comes to Michael. Let's bring in Carl Parker. He's continuing to track what's happening with the system, blasting its way now through parts of Georgia. But even a call away from this thing, we're finding some of the impacts with even tornadic warning showing up.
Yeah, that's right. And we did have a tornado warning just moments ago here in South Carolina. Let's check in on that and show you the latest on what's going on with that storm. That has been trimmed a little bit. Now, Beaufort and Jasper counties under warning until 11:15. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit on these storms. You can see there's a little bit of a curlicue there, sort of an appendage showing up on the southwest side. I'm going to check the velocity data. Not seeing anything that's really profound in the velocity data, but certainly these little hooks are interesting, right? In there, and there's another one right in there. There's another one, maybe a couple offshore there. So let's just track those forward. And it's not at all surprising to see rotating storms associated with tropical cyclones. There you see Pritchard under warning until 11:10, and then we've also got Switzerland under warning there. And then as we take this other cell forward, that's going to be going towards Bluffton and coming towards Bailey's Landing. So a couple of areas where we could be looking at some tornadoes in the next few minutes here. Looking back at this storm, man, it was just unbelievable. Unlike any that we have seen, Category 4 and very nearly a Category 5. And a storm like that is going to pile up the water, and look at the motion in the water. So it's not just a lot of times that the water gets high. It's that you've got all kinds of motion and force and actual wave action in that water. And when you think about the weight of water, if you were to take a box that was a yard wide and a yard tall, fill that box with water, it would weigh more than 1,700 pounds. It would weigh as much as a smart car. You would not be able to pick it up, obviously. So you're talking about a terrific amount of weight and power by extension in that water, which is why you see so much stuff being picked up and tossed around so easily. This is the type of thing that we were so concerned about, and we did see it. It was realized. We saw 9-foot surge in some areas, and the type of devastation that you get from surge in many cases is complete. You'll have a total loss with structures as a result of that surge. All right, I want to go back out to Mark Elliott right now, and Mark has been in the core of the storm. Mark, I know that the rain is beginning to let up right now, and maybe the wind will let up some as well. A lot of times you need that heavier rain to transport that momentum down, but boy, you are just getting rocked for quite a while tonight.
Yeah, it was really quite astounding how much wind was still left with this storm. I mean, you can't really be surprised when you are coming from such a high number at the coast, Cat 4. So it held on to those Cat 1 winds as it came all the way through the I-75 corridor of South Georgia, including here in Cordele. But yeah, as you mentioned, Carl, it's a totally different scene right now. In fact, when we first started broadcasting roughly 2.5 hours ago or so, the winds were coming basically from my back and then straight out ahead of me this way, right? Now we've got the winds coming almost due to my left and going back over my right shoulder, going out that way. So we've had that center come through, and they're going to continue to switch around, although we'll probably keep some of that subtlety component as the storm moves away and we wind up with all that air rushing towards the storm in that low pressure fashion as it tends to do, Carl.
All right, Mark, and we talked to a bunch of people today about their experience in the storm along the coast, and we saw tornado-like winds coming in with the storm. And the one thing that we heard from so many people was that it was scary. It was really scary. And in fact, we want to show you some of the video of the wind that occurred there in Panama City. All right, and you see the scaffolding or some sort of structural debris falling apart there. And again, these are very much tornado-like winds. When you talk about winds gusting up to 120, 130 miles per hour, maybe even stronger, you're going to get tornado-like damage. That's exactly what we saw in Panama City Beach. This, by the way, was on the western side of the eye wall. Oftentimes, the western side of the storm is not as strong as the eastern side of the storm, the one that is driving in from the coast, where you've got no friction coming in off the water. Those winds tend to be very strong. And then on the west side of the eye wall, you've got more of an offshore flow, and it's been coming around. It's been on land already. But when you're talking about a storm that's this strong, very nearly a Category 5 hurricane, you're going to get an incredible amount of wind no matter what part of the eye wall you are in. And we are just starting to scratch the surface, just starting to get an idea of how much wind has been out there and how much wind damage has been out there. And we want to go back out to Mark now. And Mark, unfortunately, I fear that we're going to be looking at just an incredible amount of wind damage. Just seeing some of the photos from that area, from Mexico Beach and from Panama City, it looked like really widespread areas of, again, tornado-like damage.
Yeah, whether it was the wind damage or the surge damage there, some of the images I saw are just mind-boggling. Something that you never really thought you would see, especially maybe this time of year, because it's never happened before to have a Category 4 storm come into that part of the coast the way it did earlier today. And Carl, the thing that we hear the most after the storm is from people that stayed behind, and they're like, I will never do that again, right? Just talking about how eerie it is, how loud it is, how frightening it can be. You mentioned how scary it must have been in Panama City. No one would want to live through that again once they really see what it's like in these storms.
So often we hear people say, well, we went through X, Y, and Z storms, and so we know what they're like and we understand what it's all about. But the fact of the matter is no two storms are alike, and this storm was the strongest storm to have ever hit the Florida Panhandle.